Welcome to another deep dive with us. This time, we're going to be looking at this idea of getting comfortable with discomfort.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's from a blog post on Algo Academy,
Right.
which, as a platform that helps people prep for those tough tech interviews and all that.
Right.
But the thing is, this isn't just for coding whizzes.
Yeah.
This concept really applies to anyone facing challenges, especially when we're trying to learn new things.
Yeah, it does.
So we're going to uncover why embracing discomfort is key to growth and how to actually do that, without burning out.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah, for sure. So when I first saw the title of this post, it kind of struck me as a paradox. How can you be both comfortable and uncomfortable at the same time?
Right.
But they break it down really well in the post.
Okay.
And it's not about enjoying being frustrated or anything like that. It's
Right.
more about learning to see those tough moments, those challenges as opportunities to grow.
Yeah, so if you're learning a new programming language, say,
Yeah.
you're going to run into roadblocks, errors, things like that. It's going to happen.
For sure.
But instead of getting discouraged, the idea is to be curious about it. What can you learn from this error?
Right.
How can this actually help you understand things better?
That makes a lot of sense. So Algo Academy lays out these 4 key reasons why this is so important, especially for those of us in the coding world.
Yeah.
And I think these reasons will really resonate with you too.
Yeah, I'm sure they will.
So the first one they highlight is the rapid pace of change in the tech industry, right? New languages, frameworks, tools, it's constantly evolving.
Always changing. Yeah.
So being comfortable with discomfort means you can approach those new technologies, with excitement, with curiosity.
Instead of feeling overwhelmed.
Exactly, instead of feeling threatened by it all.
Yeah.
And that actually really resonates with me because I can definitely relate to that feeling of constantly being bombarded with new information and updates.
Right.
You're always playing catch up. But I like how you framed it, It's about shifting that perspective from feeling overwhelmed to embracing the challenge.
Yeah, I think that's a really important distinction.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
So the second reason they talk about is the importance of problem solving.
Right, which is the core of coding, right?
Totally. It's all about tackling these complex challenges, and finding creative solutions.
Absolutely.
And to really excel at that, you have to be willing to venture into the unknown experiment and maybe even fail a few times along the way.
You're going to fail, yeah.
And that actually makes me think of that Thomas Edison quote. I haven't failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work.
Right.
It's perfect for this,
Yeah.
It really captures that spirit of embracing the learning process even when it's messy.
I love that quote.
Me too. So do you find that mindset helpful in your own work?
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy to get discouraged when you hit a roadblock. But if you can reframe those setbacks as learning opportunities,
Yeah.
it makes a huge difference. It takes the pressure off and lets you approach the problem with a fresh perspective.
So we've talked about the constant change in tech and the need for strong problem-solving skills. But their third reason goes even deeper. It's about personal and professional growth. Pushing past your comfort zone is where real development happens.
Absolutely. And this is where growth mindset comes in.
Yeah, they mentioned that in the post.
Which is the belief that your abilities can be developed, through dedication and hard work.
Okay.
It's that I can learn this attitude even when things are tough.
Yeah, I can definitely see that in myself. There's always that initial, I am in over my head feeling.
Yeah.
But pushing past that and reminding myself that I can figure it out, it's so empowering.
Right.
And it's like that feeling you get when you finally solve a challenging coding problem. It's addictive.
It is. It really is.
And that feeling fuels further growth.
Totally. It's a positive feedback loop.
Okay, so their fourth point builds on that. It's about building resilience.
Okay.
You're going to encounter bugs, errors, setbacks, all that. They're just part of the game.
Oh, yeah. Part of the process.
And it's how you bounce back from those experiences that really determines your success.
I think that's true for anything in life, not just coding.
Absolutely. So we've talked about why being comfortable with discomfort is so important. But how do we actually know if we're on the right track?
That's a good question.
What are the signs?
Well, Algo Academy gives some signs in the post.
Okay.
And I think they're really helpful for figuring out, how you're doing.
What really stood out to me was this idea of seeing errors not as roadblocks, but as valuable feedback.
Yeah.
It's about changing that perspective from, I messed up again, to, okay, what can I learn from this?
I think that's a crucial mindset shift.
Yeah, and it ties into another sign they mention, which is not being afraid to tackle challenges that seem beyond your skill level.
Right. You got to push past that fear of failure.
Yeah, be willing to stretch yourself.
And that brings us to another important point, asking for help.
Okay.
Algo Academy really emphasizes that seeking guidance is a strength, not a weakness.
Right.
They even say that experienced developers rely on their communities and resources for support all the time.
What do you think about that?
I think it's so true. There's this misconception that asking for help means you're not competent,
Yeah.
but really it shows that you're committed to learning and growing.
Right, and recognizing that you don't have to have all the answers yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about collaboration and learning from each other.
Yeah. And they also talk about being open to feedback and seeing it as a chance to improve,
Right.
which can be tough sometimes.
Oh, yeah, especially when you're putting your work out there.
Exactly.
Yeah,
But it's so crucial for growth.
definitely. Have you found that to be true in your own work?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think the key is to approach it with an open mind
Mm-hmm.
and a willingness to learn. It's easy to get defensive when someone critiques your work.
Right.
But if you can shift your perspective and see it as a chance to grow, it's not so intimidating.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, there's a sign that's more about feeling than action. That sense of excitement when you're starting something new,
Yeah,
even if it's a little daunting.
I love that.
It's that spark of curiosity, the feeling that you're about to learn something amazing.
Even if it comes with some apprehension.
Yeah.
It's like that feeling you get when you're about to go on an adventure.
Exactly. It's about embracing possibility, even when you know there will be challenges.
So we've covered what comfortable with discomfort means and why it's important, especially for those of you in tech. But how do we actually put this into practice? We'll explore that in part 2, where we dive into Algo Academy's strategies for developing the superpower. Welcome back to our deep dive on getting comfortable with discomfort. Before we jump into the practical strategies from the Algo Academy post, I'm curious, have you ever had like a time when you had to really push yourself outside of your comfort zone? And how did that shape you?
Let me see. Early on in my career, I was asked to present this complex technical concept
Oh, wow.
to a group of senior executives.
Okay.
And public speaking was definitely not my strong suit.
Right.
So the thought of presenting to like a high stakes audience like that,
Mm.
it just filled me with dread.
Yeah, I bet.
But I knew it was an important opportunity.
Yeah.
So I kind of forced myself to embrace the discomfort.
I can only imagine how nerve-wracking that must have been. What did you learn from that?
Oh, it was a trial by fire for sure.
Uh-huh.
But it taught me a lot about the power of preparation and practice
Yeah,
and just focusing on the message rather than my own anxiety.
that's good advice.
And you know what? It actually went really well.
Really?
Yeah, the feedback I got was really positive,
Well, that's great.
and it really boosted my confidence.
Yeah,
It
good.
helped me realize that even our biggest fears, they can be overcome with the right mindset and approach.
That's a great story. Really inspiring. So, okay, let's get into these practical strategies that Algo Academy lays out.
Okay.
They have some really actionable tips for how to actually build that comfortable with the discomfort muscle.
They do.
Yeah.
And they're not just like theoretical concepts.
Yeah.
They're based on real experience and research. So one thing they emphasize is starting with small challenges and then gradually increasing the difficulty.
Right.
Like we talked about earlier with growth mindset.
Yeah, it's like building up to that marathon. You don't just start with 26 miles.
Exactly. Start small, build your confidence step by step.
So have you used this gradual approach in your own learning? What are some examples?
Yeah, definitely. So when I was learning a new programming language,
Okay.
I started with these small self-contained projects
Okay.
where I could just focus on the basics without feeling overwhelmed.
Right.
And once I got comfortable with that,
Yeah.
then I gradually took on more complex challenges.
So it's all about those small wins, right? Building on each one.
Exactly. Positive feedback loop.
And Algo Academy also highlights the importance of consistency.
Oh, yeah, big time.
They say you should set aside dedicated time for learning and practice, even if it's just for a short time each day.
Consistency is key for anything you want to get good at.
Yeah, you got to make it a habit.
Right, like brushing your teeth.
I've been trying to do that myself, but I'll admit sometimes I struggle to find the time,
Oh, yeah, I get it. Everyone's busy.
especially with a busy schedule. Do you have any tips for staying consistent?
Well, one thing that's worked for me is like blocking off specific time slots in my calendar
Okay.
for learning.
Mm.
And I treat those appointments like they're non-negotiable.
Right, you got to prioritize it.
Exactly.
That's a good tip.
Wow.
I'll have to try that. Another strategy they talk about is reframing our perspective on failure,
Right, right.
like seeing setbacks not as defeats, but as learning experiences.
Yeah, it's so easy to beat yourself up when you make a mistake.
Yeah,
But that negative self-talk, it just holds you back.
right.
Instead, we need to be more compassionate and curious. You know,
Yeah.
when you hit a setback, ask yourself, what can I learn from this?
Right.
How can I do better next time?
It's like taking that same approach we talked about before about focusing on the message, not the anxiety, and
Exactly.
applying it to our mistakes.
Right. Focusing on what we can learn.
Yeah. So Algo Academy also encourages us to actively seek out new experiences.
Especially ones that push us outside of our comfort zones.
Yeah, so like trying new things, exploring different approaches.
Exposing yourself to new ideas.
What are some ways you've done that in your career?
Well, I've always been drawn to challenges where I have to learn new skills
Uh-huh.
or dive into something completely unfamiliar.
Okay.
So, for example, I volunteered for this project once
Okay.
that involved working with a technology I had zero experience with.
Oh, wow.
It was a steep learning curve,
I bet.
but it was so rewarding.
Yeah.
It forced me to think outside the box,
Uh-huh.
problem solve in real time, collaborate with people who had different expertise.
It's like that saying, get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Exactly.
That's where the real growth happened.
I think so.
Hmm.
And they also talk about using resources in communities,
Right.
like coding platforms, online forums, developer communities, meetups, mentorships.
It's like having that support system.
Exactly. You don't
Right.
have to do this alone.
Right. There's so much knowledge and support out there.
And it's not just about getting answers. It's about connecting with people who share your passion,
Yeah, that sense of community can be so powerful.
especially when you're stuck on something or feeling discouraged.
Totally. So Algo Academy also emphasizes the importance of reflection,
Oh, yeah.
which is something we often forget to do.
Right.
It's about taking the time to pause, look back on your experiences, and think about what you learned.
What are some strategies you use for reflection?
I find that journaling helps me a lot,
Oh, yeah.
especially after a tough experience.
It helps to get it all out.
Yeah, it helps me make sense of it all. What about you?
I like to schedule these reflection sessions in my calendar
Okay.
where I take time to think about the week.
Mhm.
What went well? What could I have done better? What did I learn?
That's a great idea. It's so easy to just keep going and going without stopping to think.
It's important to take a step back sometimes.
Right. So Algo Academy also touches on something that I think is super relevant these days.
What's that?
A-
Oh, yeah.
Like the role of AI in learning and development.
Right.
It's pretty interesting stuff.
It really is.
So AI-powered tools like the ones Algo Academy offers,
Uh-huh.
they have the potential to like revolutionize the way we learn to code.
They can provide personalized guidance, feedback, even suggest solutions to problems.
Yeah, it's amazing how these tools are getting more sophisticated all the time.
It's incredible.
But it's important to remember that AI is a tool.
Right.
It's not a replacement for human thinking.
We can't become too reliant on it.
The article makes a good point about that.
It's like having a GPS.
Okay.
It can be super helpful for getting around, but you still need to know how to read a map.
I like that analogy. It's about using AI to help us learn, not to do the learning for us.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about why embracing discomfort is important
Mhm.
and some practical ways to do it.
Right.
But what happens when that discomfort becomes too much?
Yeah. How do you find that balance?
How do you push yourself without burning out? We'll explore that in part 3, along with the amazing things that can happen when you embrace this comfortable with discomfort approach. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into comfortable with discomfort. We've talked about why it's important, some strategies for getting better at it, and even how AI plays into it all.
Yeah. It's been a really interesting conversation.
It has. And now I think we need to talk about finding that sweet spot, you know?
Right. That balance between pushing yourself and burning out.
Exactly. Because like anything else, too much of a good thing can backfire.
Definitely.
And Algo Academy actually talks about this too. They give some tips for finding that balance.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so one thing they emphasize is setting realistic goals.
Which makes sense. You don't want to set yourself up for failure.
Right. It's about knowing your limits and not trying to do too much too soon.
Yeah. Finding a pace that's challenging but sustainable.
I'm actually working on that myself. I tend to just dive headfirst into new projects.
Oh, yeah. I know that feeling.
And then I end up feeling totally burned out.
It's easy to do, especially in tech where there's always something new to learn.
Right, exactly. And Algo Academy also talks about the importance of taking breaks. which is something I'm also trying to get better at.
Breaks are so crucial.
Yeah, I'm totally guilty of getting hyper-focused on a problem and forgetting to step away.
It happens to the best of us.
But I've learned that if I don't take breaks, I just hit a wall.
Yeah, your brain needs time to rest and recharge.
Totally. And sometimes the solution to a problem will just come to me when I'm not even thinking about it.
That's happened to me so many times,
Hmm.
like in the shower or while I'm out for a walk.
It's crazy, right? Another thing Alga Academy mentions is celebrating those small victories.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. It's easy to forget about those when you're focused on the big picture,
Totally. But those small wins help you stay motivated.
and they build momentum.
Even if it's just checking something off your to-do list, it can give you a little boost.
It's like, yes, I did that.
Exactly. And speaking of self-care, Algo Academy also talks about self-compassion,
Okay.
which is basically being kind to yourself, especially when you make mistakes.
Oh, that's so important.
It is. It's so easy to get down on yourself.
Right. But that negative self-talk doesn't help anyone.
It just makes things worse.
We need to be more understanding with ourselves, like we would be with a friend who's struggling.
Yeah, exactly. And lastly, they remind us that it's okay to ask for help.
Right. Don't be afraid to reach out to your support system.
Whether it's a mentor, a friend, or even an online community.
There are so many people who can offer support and guidance.
Exactly. So we've talked about finding that balance. But why is all this discomfort worth it in the end? What's the payoff?
Good question. Algo Academy actually lists a bunch of benefits.
Yeah.
Like you become more adaptable, you get better at problem solving, you're more confident, and you learn things faster.
What do you think is the most significant payoff?
I think it's the confidence you gain. When you keep pushing yourself outside your comfort zone, you start to believe in yourself more.
Like you can handle anything.
Exactly. And that confidence helps you in every area of your life, not just in your work.
Yeah, that's so true. It's like leveling up in real life.
Totally. And Algo Academy even says this mindset can help you become a better leader.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because you're not afraid to take risks, you're willing to embrace challenges, and you lead by example.
So it all comes back to being comfortable with discomfort.
It really does.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a little challenge.
Okay.
What's one small step you can take this week to push yourself outside of your comfort zone?
It could be anything, like trying a new coding technique or signing up for a workshop on something you've always wanted to learn.
Exactly. Remember, the journey of growth never really ends. So embrace the discomfort, push your boundaries, and see where it takes you.
You might be surprised by what you discover.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Comfortable with Discomfort. We hope you found it insightful and inspiring. And remember, you're not alone on this journey. There's a whole community out there to support you. Until next time, keep diving deep.